edition of Steel and Whiskey. I'm Michelle McCarthy.
I'm Doug Evans.
Jeremy Johnson.
Jeremy is our guest speaker from 4G, a steel fabricator that's right down the street from us. We're excited to have you today.
Appreciate it.
What are you drinking?
A little bit of Crown and Coke today.
All right.
I've got some Woodford Reserve Double Oak.
And I am trying High West whiskey. It's from Park City, Utah, and it is delicious. If you have a chance to go out and try it.
I think you think all whiskey's delicious.
You're right. I do.
So I'm glad you came today. Tell us a little bit about 4G, like what kind of where you started, what kind of fabricator, what kind of work you do, that kind of stuff.
Well, we started about a little over 5 years ago. We do structural and miscellaneous steel. Company has just grown tremendously. It was a startup company 5 years ago, and we built it into, now we have around 60 employees. We're fabricating tons and tons of steel. Miscellaneous steel that goes with it, we can't even keep up with that anymore, so we've gotten where we're subbing a lot of that out. And we've just been super, super blessed with the way we've been able to grow, the support we've had. The people that's helped us along the way, and I'm talking suppliers, SDS2 Steel suppliers, anybody that would walk through the door. It seems like they just helped cater to us and help us prosper. And we've had some really good employees that work for us, and that really helps kick a lot of work out the door.
And employees are critical.
Super, super critical. I mean, finding the right ones is the key. When you find them, then you want to hang on to them.
What kind of equipment do you have?
We run a lot of petting house equipment. We've got a PCD 1100 petting house drill and a 1250 saw that cuts up to 55 inches. We run a ABC 1250 coping machine, Angle Master 643Q petting house Angle Master, and then a DG 410, another saw that we run, and it's petting house as well. Then we got a ProStar plasma cutter, and we just ordered a brand new 320-ton, 14-foot press brake from AccuPress, so we're pretty excited about that. So, and the good thing about it is we've done all that from a startup. So all this equipment's new. We got state-of-the-art technology there, and with the marriage of SDS2 and all the CNC equipment and the other softwares, it all works together to where we run everything very, very efficient.
And speaking of that, you've got a pretty tight footprint. I've been to a lot of fabricators around the country, and your footprint's pretty tight, and so you've got to be a master planner. So when you get a project in, I've seen your shop obviously, and you've got a couple trailers at the end. How do you go about saying, okay, here's my project. How am I going to break it down so you get it into loads and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So we try to work with the erectors as much as we can, and we find out where they're gonna start. And once they tell us where they're gonna start, well, then it's easy. I just go into the model and I start selecting all the pieces and I start building those loads, just like the erector's gonna set it. And once I get that all done, I just break that up into lots. Well, every lot's a truckload of steel. So when we order material and we combine all that material into raw stock, then we just say, okay, we want this first, and that's our first truckload, and that's our second truckload, and that's how we fabricate it, and it comes all the way through the door. So with our shop, because it is so small, as far as square footage wise, we're able to kick out a lot of work, because we always joke about it being the Henry Ford assembly line. And I'm going to tell you right now, it enters the building and it's processed and drilled and coped. It comes off of there. All the weldments are put on it. All the weldment locations are etched on there where it goes. And so it's relatively easy. We got some great welders that weld up right behind it, and then it goes right into a paint process, and it's literally straight through. So that really, really helps us on material handling. And
I know you've used scribing with SDS2, but one of the unique things, you were one of the first fabricators, if not the first fabricator I heard, when you're doing your plate burning, you also etch your stairs.
Yes. So for us, we take our burn table, and we bought a 40-foot table, but for plate-wise, we can only do 20-foot. Well, I bought that 40-foot so we could stick 40-foot channels or tubes up there when we're doing the stair stringers, and then we just etch the entire layout of that stair stringer. So when it comes to layout for us, the whole thing's laid out all CNC, so we don't do any of that manually.
So how much time does that save you?
Oh, hours. There'd be times people would have stairs bid at 12 hours, and we'll have them done in 6 to 8.
Wow. So you're cutting it in half.
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah, I mean it's super. It just really helps because, and it also helps because if you got maybe you got a new employee that's not as skilled, he's learning. Well, if he's got it all laid out there for him, it's just that much easier for him to jump into the mix. You don't have to have that employee that's been there for 20, 30 years, that's done the same thing over and over and over, so he's really good at it. We could take a guy and make him really good and in pretty quick fashion just because of the layout's already done.
And the interesting, I don't know, personal philosophy or business philosophy you have, I've noticed, but the small footprint isn't a negative. You just use it as a benefit, meaning I'm going to optimize what I can.
Right.
And you have to become efficient. It makes you become efficient.
It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you organized, and you're always thinking about the next step or 3 steps ahead. I've never had the benefit of having all kinds of room. I don't know what I'd do with it. To be honest with you.
Well, it makes you lazy. You could just throw stuff. I just put it over there. We'll deal with it later.
The other benefit is when you go to do material handling, it doesn't have to go very far. So
right, exactly.
It's quick, and nothing sits in the shop very long.
So what are some of the frustrations as a steel fabricator, top to bottom of the project? What are some of the biggest frustrations you have?
Well, we talked about the efficiency, and we talked about building the lots and the loads. Well,
can I stop you for a
yes.
second? Because I actually want to know. So when you're building the lots and the loads, you're using the SDS2 model to do that.
Yes.
So is that just updating a status, or what? Can you talk about that process a little bit?
As far as we start selecting all the members in there, literally just like that erector would set up. So if the erector says, "Okay, we're going to start here," well, he's got to set this column and this column before he can set the beam across the top, right? Well, so when I go through, I just start picking just like he's going to do it. So I highlight this column and this column and this beam and then this column and this beam.
Okay.
You kind of build. The erector always talks about building squares. Well, that's kind of what we're doing.
Okay.
And we're just doing it electronically, and then we watch that weight build up, and as soon as we get to 45,000 pounds, then we literally, okay, there's our lot.
So you just add on like the center of mass tool to figure out until the weight builds up, and then calling out lot 1, lot 2, lot 3. Okay.
Yep. So, and it works rather well. So it keeps us pretty organized. But like you were saying, the problems are is if, let's say they're going to start in an area and we start sending all the steel to them in that area, and then they want to change gears because maybe footings ain't done in this area and they want to go over here. Well, with a small shop and not a lot of laydown area, it's really hard to change gears because we're ordering that material as it comes in.
Right.
But most of the time we're able to adjust and overcome and adapt and so forth. But it really helps the erectors out because when it is all going the way they need to go, they don't, what they call it, shaking out steel. So when they get it there, they just start sorting it by this area and this area. Well, it's already done. That entire truckload is all erectable steel, and it's right here. This truckload's all erectable steel, and it's right there.
So it eliminates their shakeout process.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And then trying to get the erectors on board to do that is the other key. Some of them are still old school, and they don't want to do it because they haven't had any fabricators do it like this. Right. So that makes it a little tough. But then once we get a job with them and we do that, then they start understanding, hey, this really makes my life a little easier. To do it, because typically they'd say, I want all the steel and I want it now. Well, then they're stepping over steel or going over top of it. This allows them just to set steel just as they get it.
Right. So getting back to the challenges, what do you see the major challenges for a fabricator your size now and then maybe going into the future?
Right now, it's finding employees. That's tough, and we're willing to work with anybody, and we've got some really good ones, but finding. It seems like you go through 5 employees to find one good one. Coming to work on time, showing up. That's a tough thing for us, and we've struggled with that a little bit. That's why I said early in the beginning, when you find a good employee, you hang on to them. Do what you can to make sure they stick around.
Right.
So that's probably the challenge. And then finding people that know, like say project managing and things like that. Finding somebody that's got the skill set to know the design drawings, know the shop drawings, a little bit about the detailing, and a little bit about construction that can tie it all together and manage that project. That makes it really tough because there's not a lot of people out there that can do that.
Right.
So just to reiterate, you can't have Nate. So if you could, and we'll get to the questions, some of the questions. So if you could just put knowledge into people that you work with, heads, erectors, detailers, what could you put into a detailer's head before you work with them and say, hey, I wish you knew this before you
I
started?
wish I knew how to fabricate.
What does that mean? What are you saying?
If they knew how to put everything together. I know they know how to read the shop drawing because they're doing it, and I know how the pieces go together. But if they knew that, hey, I can't put this weld here because there's another clip here.
Right.
If they knew that, just little things like that a lot of times the detailer hangs us and we can't get it. That maybe they should have had this information sooner because this weld detail isn't right. There's no way we can do this weld detail the way it's called out. Right. And they're just copying and pasting off of a design drawing, and saying, hey, this is supposed to be a full pen weld. Well, this full pen weld that they're asking for is impossible. So by that time, it's already made it to the shop because usually it gets overlooked at approval or whatever the case might be. So if they understood how to do that stuff, I think it would help us out a lot because they would be able to.
I was just talking to a fabricator today that so he had a shear plate job on tube that was a through, and they had a weld inside outside. Well, he had to actually cut the tube to weld inside and then weld the tube back on because there was a connection in the middle.
Connection in the middle of it.
Yeah. Anyway, so if the detailer knew how to fabricate, he at least corrected it before it got there.
Yep. No.
Stuff like
for
that.
Sure. Yep. And it would save a lot of time. And then the other thing that we struggle with, and I'm sure many fabricators do, and that's if the detailers had a little bit of experience of erection too. Because we run into that a lot of times. If they got, say you got a 5x5 column and we got a vertical brace that's coming into, that's 5x5, and they put plates. Well, they'll put those plates tight. Well, they got to have a gap because otherwise you're never going to get that tube in there. Or for instance, if you're going to use anchors, hole sizes, the erector calls us up as project managers and they say, hey, we got a 7/16 hole. There's no way we can put this 3/8 anchor in there because to do it, we'd have to have a 9/16 hole or a ½ inch hole, or whatever the case might be. And they miss that a lot of times. And I think it's tough. I don't think everything gets looked at as closely as it should at approval. But they're paying attention to different things, and so that causes some problems sometimes too, just some headaches.
So other than wanting to kill engineers you're working with, we'll go ahead.
Another question. Are you subbing out detailing? Is it happening in-house or is it a mix?
It's a mix. We got a pretty good detailing crew. We do probably 65% of it. We got a couple 900-ton jobs right now, and we've subbed out those details because if we tried to do a 900-ton detail job in-house, it would tie us up, and we wouldn't be able to do all the other quick hitters and the 200s and the 300-ton jobs that we're running through at the same time. So we try to sub out the really big ones, and then we try to keep in all the what we call medium to smaller jobs, just because we can keep up on those a little faster. So about half, a little more than half, we keep in-house.
And it's good to be able to control the job projects. You need to be able to control in-house. You have to.
Right.
Not having
The good thing is when we do sub the job out, we just make sure we get the model every day.
Right.
And we only use companies that are using SDS2 because that's what we have in-house. So consequently, then whenever we get a new release, we want the most current model, so we have that right on hand. So if they would miss something or overlook something or not do something right, we can make that change if we need to. And then all we got to do is send it to them if it's worthy, so that we don't end up with a problem with the model.
So cheers to that.
So.
So again, engineers. So if you could do the same thing to engineers, what knowledge could you impart in their head that would say, "Hey, consider this before you design a project"? Or
look at. I think a lot of the times the engineers miss the weld details, and there's a lot of easier ways that they could do that, which save our customers more time. They might call out something that's just, it might be a continuous weld all the way down something. Well, there's really no reason for it. And if they did the calcs, they'd find out that they don't need that continuous weld. Well, it takes a fabricator a long time to weld continuous welds and things. And then it also causes other problems like distortion, from too much heat and those type of things. And I wish they would understand that because that makes the fabricator's life pretty hard sometimes when they do that. And, I think a lot of times, rather than do the calcs, they just say, weld it all.
Right. Weld all around. Feel good.
Over designing it.
And
let them figure it out.
Least weight is
rather than do their due diligence of figuring it out. That's what they say. And that's not all of them. Some of them do a really good job, but there's just a few that don't.
And I hear commonly it's not worry so much about least weight. Trying to get the lightest member size isn't always the best fabrication method in cost and time.
This was like a 30-minute debate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yesterday,
I'm sure.
We were talking about what things people maybe could benefit from knowing. What about, so engineers, detailers, what about GCs or even like the other trades that are on the site after the steel's in? Is there anything that would be helpful for them to know?
Yeah, I mean, just schedules, They always got a schedule that we're supposed to follow. The problem with us, or with any of them, really, and I'm sure everybody has this problem, is everybody wants everything right now these days. There's no time. We're literally getting drawings, and I'm supposed to be fabricating it right now, and that makes it tough. And then if they make changes, there's no time for changes. We're already into the job or into the project, and there wasn't enough time for people to look over, think about things, review these changes. And it's, we'll make that change later. Not after we started fabricating and materials ordered and the whole process is going and parts are being put on the burn table and so forth. So that
the impact of it.
Yeah, I mean it just and then the schedule doesn't change. Oh, you didn't get the drawings back to us in time, so we need another 2 weeks. No, that doesn't happen. It's
the date was
and they're working on a schedule too because they got an owner sitting there saying, this is the day that it's got to stop. We got to be done. Well, so they're doing what their customer wants. We're trying to do what our customer wants, but sometimes it's just not feasible. That's one of the toughest things. Just schedule, and working together on certain things. A lot of times they think we don't need to know something, and we do.
Right. So, and that's where I think that what we call early fabricator adoption, or just getting the fabricator on board early in the process, so you can help with some of the decisions earlier, and then when they start trying to make those changes, you can at least be in the discussion.
We talked about breaking the job up into lots and all that stuff and going through like the erectors have. We've gotten now to the point where all the bigger jobs, when I say bigger, I'm talking anything that's more than 6 truckloads of steel. We bring the erector, we find out who the erector is, and I bring the erector in and we sit down at my desk and we start going through that model. And he starts looking at that model, looking for things that are tough to maybe for him to set, or little things that he goes, this is a pain in the rear, we're going to need to make a change here. Then I can make that change before we ever start the fabrication. And
what kind of changes are you talking about?
Oh, like if he sees something that's a field weld and it's like I see at the shop, it's not going to be very good. Or maybe he sees, maybe the pour stop is not all welded down to the beams and it can be, and that would save him time.
Okay.
Well, we could weld that down in our shop way faster than he can. So we might have $10,000 labor to weld it down that he'd pay us extra. Where if they did it in the field, it might take $20,000 labor to do it out there because it's twice as hard. So little things like that, and then they can also talk to us about the erection schedule, things like that. And when they can see that in the model, it helps them too because they sit there looking at a 2D shop.
So they're saying change this from field assembled to shop assembled, or maybe adjust this connection so we can swing it in instead of drop it in.
Yep, little things like that. Yep.
Yeah, and SDS2 helps you do that.
Yes.
Have you ever had a fabricator use SDS2 in the field?
I have not.
Yeah.
I think we're getting closer.
I think we are too.
I think we're getting closer. And we maybe need to do a little bit more work on just trying to make that happen. But we're definitely getting closer. I've had one customer the GC operates paperless just like our shop does. And we were able to share models and stuff with them on their tablet, and we were able to work through some issues that way. And, but we haven't got to the full-blown.
Right. Were you doing that with the RFI then?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're sending over the PDF that has the model in there. They can look at it and give you the feedback.
And here in this office, it's maybe assumptive, but maybe talk about that paperless, because every shop I talk to now has gone that. But so, what do you do for your shop stations? What are they getting, and how do you update their drawings?
Yeah. So if we had to go back to paper, I don't even know how companies do it with the paper. I mean, when I think back to how we used to do it, and cut lists, and you'd cross them off.
4x36.
And I mean, and then keeping an inventory and all that stuff. I don't know how that would work. But
what are you doing now? Because I haven't been to yours. I don't think I've ever actually been to Woodford.
Our every employee's got a tablet. It's just a 10-inch tablet, and we use a software EPM that works for that, and it nests everything together onto that tablet. It's web-based, so the tablet could be and we do use this, the cheapest tablet you can buy, because it doesn't have to have a lot of whatever you want to call it, power to it. I guess.
It's just numbers.
Because it's all web-based and it's communicating back and forth that way. So anyway, they got our schedule, so what they need to be working on is all on there. They got access to their time cards, their time off requests. All that stuff is all done right there through that tablet. And then cutlass, they get ready to pull it up. They can filter by what job we're working on, what cutting station it's going to. Is it going to the petting house drill? Is it going to the plasma table, the angle master, the iron worker, which saw? There's 3 different saws. Which one of those it's going to? And that cutlass is there, and it's all combined. And then
that's all coming from the SDS2 models.
Well, that SDS2 imports, takes KISS file, and we import it into this software.
Perfect. Okay.
And then when they get ready to cut something, maybe they got a 20-foot stick and there's 6 pieces in there. They run those 6 pieces and they just hit cut, and it updates everything.
Nice.
And now, if there was a 6-foot drop, that goes back in my inventory. Live, we're able to turn around and re-nest on that 6-foot piece on a different job if we so chose to. And so that keeps track of all that. There's no turning in papers, somebody going to the computer and making the changes every day. All the shop drawings, they just pull that up. If I want them to work on only lot 1 or a sequence or something, they filter by that job number, that sequence, and that's the only thing they see. If I want this department to do that, I set that up in there as well. And they only see that, what they're supposed to be working on at that point in time. So, the communication is just there all the time, live, and we don't have to have all that one-on-one because it's just right there in front of me.
And the paper and updates, changes, revisions to the drawing, you can just update, and it shows up on their tablet.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point now where we can see it all. I can see the lifetime, where a piece is at in production. If it's on a trailer, if it's shipped out, if it's been painted. All those things because of that. Our QC system goes the same way. If a customer calls us, wants a QC report, we just go print the whole report out for the whole job, and it's all right there. If we had any issues with anything, if it failed, if it passed now, if it was cut short, or all that stuff's right there. So it's paperless that's the way to go, because it just updates it all.
Right.
And having it that way. But,
And if you go 7 years back, 5 years back, nobody was.
Nobody
everybody was.
And I think we might be the only one in this area that's doing it. I shouldn't say that too loud, but if they are, I don't know that.
Right.
And I know if we're not, I do know we're the first ones to do it. We've been doing it quite a while now, paperless. But
That's the way to go for sure.
so we've been doing it about 4 years, and I couldn't go back. There's no way I can go back to being a paper. So it's been a good move for us.
So you talk about a lot of the equipment you have. If I took everything out and said you could only have one piece of equipment, what piece would you pick and why?
I'd pick the drill.
The drill?
Yeah, without a doubt. It takes a long time to lay out and drill back and drill with mag drills.
Mag drills.
And things
Versus
like that.
plate burners?
Yeah, I could buy plate out if I needed to, or we could cut it and punch holes on an iron worker. But drilling all the holes, the beams, and then I know for a fact that drill makes us better because it lays out, it scribes
plus
all
you're
the
scribing
parts
too,
and
yeah.
locations. So, I know it makes us better. We have less errors because of it. You know if you missed a shear tab because you're gonna have etch marks right there.
Right.
You can see it. It isn't like you look at
What
it.
the
and
hell
go,
goes here?
Shear tab. I can walk by and look at a beam and know there's a shear tab here, and by the way, that's an SF3, and there's a shear tab here, and by the way, that's an SF4.
Right.
You can see that because not only does it etch where it goes, it also tells you what part goes there.
Right.
So that would be the one piece that I think I would not want to go without. That was one of those deals where my sales guy stopped in. This is about typical with everything with 4G, to be honest with you. But our sales guy stopped in for Penning House. We were 3 months old, and I said, "Hey." We left at the end of the conversation. Went out for lunch. I said, "Check back with us in a year and a half." Right? We bought a used single spindle FICEP drill line. It worked good. It did the first $5.5 million of the business. But I told the Penning House guy, I said, "Check back with us in a year and a half." 3 months, I placed the order. 9 months, we had the drill installed.
If you answered the phone, it was a good sign.
So anyway, that's a kind of a funny story twist to that. Ironically, we were heading to Bradley, Illinois to go look at this drill, and at that point in time, we were trying to do as much as we could. We were burning the candle on both ends, and my business partner Charlie was bidding the job as I was holding my phone driving down the road with a light, so we had extra light on the job. And anyway, it was a school, and so that's as we're going to Bradley, Illinois. Ironically, the first job to run through that drill was the exact
Oh,
same
really?
job. Was the exact same job that we were bidding as we were driving up there to go look at it.
It's a
So,
life symmetry.
I mean, how ironic is that? You
Yeah,
know, I mean,
absolutely.
just kind of crazy. But,
Stuff happens more than you think.
Let's talk about bidding jobs.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Educate me on the process of bidding jobs.
On bidding jobs?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta have some guys that know what they're doing, and that kind of goes back to the project manager we're talking about. But so we actually got 4 people that are bidding. A lot of our project managers are doing the bidding. We're working with the ESTA modeling right now, trying to get that going because we think that that's going to be the direction that we really need to focus on and hit hard. And Doug knows kind of where I stand on that. I think that's going to be super great as soon as we get full bore into it. But you know, we some of the challenges we're having with that is getting that BIM model.
Right.
We just got to get people convinced to share information. I think right now everybody's worried about this guy's got an advantage or this guy's got an advantage. And, this is America. You do the best you can.
Right.
And it
If
goes
they,
back.
if they don't have the technology, then so be it. Then they need
Right.
to
That's
invest.
not your fault.
That's not our fault.
And I'd like to say that technology creates great projects, but really from the beginning of time till now is communication creates great projects, and technology allows for that. But if they could just give you those models, the time and money saved in the whole process.
I mean, you can find things. Hey, what you got going on here? That's going to be expensive. Did you know that's going to be expensive?
No, I mean we can look at that. You
Yeah.
know, weld connections and all that stuff. We can, you know, how many is there? That's all going to be in there. It'll be a lot easier for us to do it because right now we're manually doing it. We're looking at saying, okay, we got 55 moment weld connections with full pin welds. That's going to be this much time. We got these type of connections. That's going to be this much time. This is how much plate we got. This is how many beams we got. You know, where if we could put it all into the ESTA modeling, it's all right there.
Yeah.
We can just submit the report.
And I was talking to Levi, it was one of your estimators, and we're with your ability with Charlie in house with the engineering ability, you could do. You call it design assist. I call it project assist. If you could get that model early, and then run the process, say, hey guys, if we could do this, I could cut X percent of labor and X percent of time off your project, and now you're helping the whole project.
Right. And doesn't
As
that
a
become a
manufacturer.
selling point for like why
Yeah.
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys should be the fabricators?
And
on
that's
the
why they
project?
should give you a BIM model.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And it just makes us more efficient. They're going to see lower numbers from us. You know, one of the things that we've done true, which has helped us grow tremendously, is we've been consistent. There's no, you know what, we got a ton of work, so we're going to bid this one high. You know what, we don't have a lot of work, we're going to bid this super low. I mean, we play with that a little bit, but we're talking very small percentages. If somebody gets a number from 4G, it's going to be a very consistent number. If it was 392 tons, it's this amount. If it's 450 tons, it's the same amount, only divided up. I mean,
Correct.
unless there's extra stuff in there.
Right.
It's just a consistent base of estimates. I mean, I would say it'd be very rare if somebody had an estimate from us that was just like clear up here and everybody else was down here. I mean, we lost a job here the other day to somebody that was 11% lower than us, a big job, and they must have needed to work. That's what I said, because we got all the equipment, so there's no reason anybody can do anything any more efficient than us, right? But the next guy right beside us, on a $2.6 million job, $1,200. That was the difference in the bid.
Yeah.
So we were number 2, they were number 3, but it was a $1,200 difference outside of that one that's way up here.
That's
So you guys are doing what's
my other work.
That's the thing that I'm telling you about 4G. You're not going to see that. We're going to be right there every single time.
Right.
You know? So unless there's just a flat out miss, and that just happens, and that's another reason why I think the ESTA modeling with the BIM projects is going to help us.
Sure, absolutely.
How do
There's gonna be a lot
misses
of
happen?
misses. Oh, just overlook it.
Yeah.
Bad designs.
Okay.
Bad designs is a big one. You know, not enough information on there, and we got to guess. You know, that's one of the biggest things. I mean, you know, they might show perimeter angle in this one spot.
Right.
Maybe it's 40,000 feet of it, but it don't really show that.
Right.
Okay.
Just leave it out.
You just got to kind of figure that out. That's where experience comes into play. You know, so I don't bid those jobs every day. I'd probably miss that.
Right.
Now, the guys that are doing that every day, they're not. They're not going to miss them. And I think they do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But there's always room for improvement, and that's our motto. There's always room for improvement. So
Okay. I heard a rumor.
Oh God.
Your son's name is Steel.
You did.
And this is my favorite thing.
That started out as a joke with
Yeah.
my father-in-law, and we were trying to pick a name for our son, and my father-in-law says, I think we should name him Steel, and I laughed about it for a little bit because we couldn't come up with names. And everything that I'd pick, my wife would say no, even though I was supposed to get the name. And so at first I thought I was a little corny. I thought, well, whatever. But I was like, it was kind of a joke for me that turned into reality. And I was like, that's what it is, Steel. I love it. That's it. That's what we're doing. And my wife was like, no. I was like, no, that's what we're doing. And she'd ask one person, and one person would say, oh, that's the greatest name in the world. And the next person would say, really? That's what you're going to do? I'm like, hell yeah, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. So anyway, when it came time for him to be born, Steel was his name, and it just so happens that it fits. So we got Steel Johnson.
Nice.
He's 2 years old now and growing every day, and feisty little guy, but he hopefully lives up to the name because that's kind of a manly name.
It's a
I think.
strong
Tough,
name. I
large,
like it.
Strong name, strong as steel. So
Strong as Steel.
we'll see.
That's
We'll
outstanding.
see how he goes and he grows, but
Outstanding story.
but no, awesome. It started out funny, and then it just became reality. And the more that I thought about it, the more I just loved it. And now, very seldom do we hear people say anything negative about it.
Right.
In fact, since we've named him that, I know there's been 3 more kids named that.
That's it started to trend.
And we Googled that
Yeah.
name, and we found very few
Right.
people named Steel. So there was a few out there,
Mm-hmm.
but not very many. And we spell it just like Steel, so
Okay.
S-D-E-L. So,
Nice.
but no, pretty cool deal.
Started trending.
That's awesome. I think that's a good note to end it on.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for joining us,
No,
Jeremy.
hey, thanks for having me. This was
Yeah.
awesome. I appreciate it.
So thanks for joining another edition of Steel and Whiskey. Again, hope we didn't bore you. We got a little humor out of it, and as you said, just like with Jeremy, stay connected, keep talking to your people, and there's something to learn every day.